Hello students, today we will do chapter 1, that is nationalism in Europe. During the 19th century, nationalism grew as a strong force that brought various political changes in Europe. So the final result of these changes was the coming up of the nation state in place of the multinational dynastic empires of Europe. Now let's see the rise of nationalism. Let's see the causes, the French revolutions, and the ideas of the nations. It was France from where the concept of this nationalism came into existence for the first time with the French Revolution in 1789. Before this, France was a territorial state. This means that it was ruled by an absolute monarchy. And the word absolute means a rule where the whole power is concentrated in the hands of a ruler or a monarch. So, the French revolutions brought the concepts of these nations and nationalism in France, and the main aim was to form a nation where there will be a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. So, for this, the French revolutions introduced various measures and practices that could create a sense of collective identity among the French citizens. So, the revolutions firmly established the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. 1789 French revolutions called in ideas of nationalism. Kanti hi ma niram mangai na ahring chuak masaberani. French ram kha revolutions atlen ma chuanin French ram po kha lal in thla chongte ro rel na hnuaian oma. Ti chuan French revolution ina atum ber chu French ram mipuite inpum khata siama in tluklang taka dik na chanvo neya ram in kai shwai na dan zam kha andu ber chu ni chumi tur chuanin revolutionary stand thuma shwai poimo tak tak an mani identity ni na pho chuak thei tur chi te kha an siam ani chuan France revolution ina adin or ara chua chu liberty zalen na equality in tluklana fraternity in unaw na te an lo ni tani. And next we go to Charter of Liberations. The Declarations of Rights of Men became the charters of liberalism and inspired the peoples of the countries to fight against this despotism and to become a nation state. So soon the news about this French Revolution spread to various cities to Europe. The students and other members of this educated middle class began setting up these Jacobin clubs. These Jacobin clubs were those revolutionaries who aimed to establish a republic in their countries by ending the king's rule, and the activities and campaigns of these clubs allowed the French armies to move into this Holland, Switzerland, and much of this Italy in 1790s. French mipuitena mimal digna chanvo Declarations of Rights of Men an puan kha ramdang atipurin atithathau em ani chuan reilo te a French Revolution chanchin hi Europeans khopui sang khan aron dar ta ni ti chuan in zirlai te middle class te khang ho kha changrwalin Jacobins clubs te an ron din ta ni Jacobins ho hian in lalro rel na pai thla du in Republican kha an ramadin khan du ani ti chuan Jacobins te hian in beipui thlakin an army te kha ramsang Holland ate Switzerland ate Italy ate 790s chauvel khanin an lawin zar phar na sa ni and next we go to Revolutionaries War. Rule of Napoleon 1804 to 1815. Napoleon was a French statesman and a military leader who came to power in France. He led many successful campaigns during these French Revolutionary Wars and was able to conquer vast parts of Europe, and he introduced many reforms in these areas under his control. Napoleon, after coming into power, had destroyed democracy in France. But in administrative field, he had incorporated revolutionary principles in order to make the whole system more logically and efficient. And one of the most important reforms introduced by him was the introductions of this civil code of law, which was introduced civil code of this 1804 or Napoleonic code. Okay, now let's see the features of this code. Equality before the law was established, feudal system was abolished, right to property was given, and abolished all these privileges based on birth, the serfdoms and manorial dues were abolished, and so was the transport and communications were improved to a great extent. This code was introduced in this Dutch Republic, Switzerland, Italy, and Germany. Peasants, artisans, workers, and these new businessmen were happy with this newfound freedom. So the uniform laws, standardized weights and measures, and a common nation's currency welcomed by these businessmen and small-scale goods producers, as this had facilitated the movement and exchange of goods and capitals from one region to another. And during this war, Napoleon Bonaparte emerged as a victorious general, leading to his increasing popularity in France and the support of the French army. And his increasing popularity enabled Napoleon to gain control of this French government. Napoleon lal hun chungkha 1804 to 1815 ania arorel chungkhan democracy hi paithak inaomani mo mase paithak inom ma se civil code of conduct te adinani he civil code of conduct he ani mipuite intluklan na asiama feudal system te atibo thungani diktaka inle lo nei theina dan te siama mo chuan in kalpo na in biak po na kan ti te khan asatakin manron son bokani chuan he civil code of conduct hi ramdang Dutch Republic te Switzerland te Italy Germany te Germany ate din ania mo ti chuan lo nei tu te artisans te na thok tu te le nge khang ho khanin zalen takin dan in ang khata anom ta ka wang khanin nasatakin ma an son chakani ti chuan Napoleon Bonaparte aron lar chho te la general ro pui takron ni chawin French ram sarkar kha aron ne ta ne. And next we go to ideologies of liberalism. During the early 19th century, the ideas of nationalism and liberalism were closely related. To the Europeans, the word liberalism is derived from Latin words liber, which means free. In Europe, the new middle class saw liberalism as freedom for the individuals and equality of all before laws. They all stretched for the government elected by the people. Since the French revolutions took place, the term liberalism has taken shapes into a new meaning, and the end of this autocracy and clerical privileges. It was also meant the framing of the constitutions and for the formations of government through parliament. Okay, 19th century malama Europeans ram shang tena nationalism ram mangai na le liberalism zalen na chungchanga unreal rusu khlek dan hi a inzuzui hle ya liberalism hi Latin chong chuan Latin chong liber omzia chu zalen ti na ni ya Europeans hoina zalen na an mu dan chu mimal zalen na le dan ma a intluk tlan na ani chuan Europeans ram shang te hian in sarkar mipui than ro rel na an tlang au pui ani ti chuanin French Revolutions aron thlen khanin liberalism hianin omzia ron nei chawin lalro relna paithaka mipui than sarkar din kha an tumber chuni and next we go to this emergence of educated middle class. It was the liberal educated middle class who demanded the ends of these autocratic privileges and encouraged national unity. They were inspired by the doctrines and ideas of this liberalism and demanded government based on the consent and stood for freedom of equality for all. This middle class emerged after the abolition of aristocratic privileges and gained popularity. Educated middle class te hi revolutions kai shuai tu poimo berte zingami annia lalro rel na pai thaka ram in pum khatna kha anniat ber chu ania liberalism chungchanga anril rusu khlek dan le intluk tlan na an au puya wang hianin educated middle class te din mun kha aron ti chaka nge anron lar chho hle ni educated middle class kha. And next we go to autocratic regimes of 1815. The conservative regime was set up in 1815 were autocratic. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent and sought to curb activities that questions the legitimacy of autocratic government. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspaper, books, plays, and songs and reflected the ideas of liberty and freedom associated with these French revolutions. Autocrats then an ram ro rel dan. An nun phung le an kal phung kha an nan thak hret awangin an mani soi chetu te kha nge an dem em me ni tichuan mipui na ma an lak theilo na tur khanin dan ten siamani mo chanchin bu ni se censorship law mi thuziak du na lai pai sak theina dan te khan siamani tichuan an lo mit thale lo suang tua thin French Revolution ina a hrin chwa zalen na le nge in u naw na te kha swal chuak theilo tur khanin nge an khwa khir tlat ani autocrat sau khanin. And next we go to Romanticism. Let's find out the romantic imaginations and national feelings. The nations of nationalism did not come because of wars and territorial expansions only, but this culture also played a significant role in creating awareness about the importance of this nationalism. Various artists and poets took help of their poems, stories, and music to express and shape nationalist feelings, and this cultural movement carried by the poets, writers, and the artists came to be known as Romanticism. And these romantic artists and poets were the criticizers of reasons and science, and to inculcate a sense of the shared collective heritage and common cultural past, they tried to focus on emotions, institutions, and mystical feelings, or they stir pride in folk tales and heroic deeds of yore and condemn restrictions in individual freedom of expression. Ram mangai na ram ta na thathem ngai na kan ti hi indo na awanga mo indo na wangte thleng anla raman zo wangte chau ni lovin culture nun phung le namje hianin chanvo anei ve ni ram mangai na poimo zia min shil shia ni mo an ram kha thin lunga an vei dante an soi chuaka fin na te zongin mimal zalen na inra be sakna dante kha tha an tilo ani and next we go through Age of Revolutions 1830 to 1848. During the period of 1830 to 48, Europe witnessed great tensions and unrest, and one side conservatives were trying to become more powerful, and on the other side the revolutionaries were attempting hard to bring liberalism and nationalism in Europe. These revolutionaries were mainly educated middle class elites, like these professors, school teachers, clerks, and members of this commercial middle class started revolutionary activities in many regions of this Europe, like in Italy and the German state and the provinces of this Ottoman Empire, Ireland, and this Poland. And the first such incident took place in France in July 1830, and then the liberal revolutionaries overthrew this Bourbon king, and it placed a constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe as its head was established, and these July revolutions led to an inspiring in Brussels, which resulted in the separations of this Belgium from the United Kingdoms of these Netherlands. 1830s atanga 1840s hun chung khanin Europe rama khanin buaina le phok lekna athlengna sa hle ni lelama chuanin lal sipaiten a thuneina nei tumin tanan la a chuti rwal chuanin revolutionaries hoin zalel na le ram in u naw na thlen tumin enge anin man lo la ve char bokani chu revolutionaries ton chuan revolutionaries te hi middle class educated middle class ani tlang pui ani the chuanin lastly we'll go to these July revolutions. The French revolutions of 1830s was known as the July revolutions or the Second French revolutions. The French Bourbon monarch and the essence of his cousin Louis Philippe, Duke of Orleans, who himself after 18 precarious years of the throne would be overthrown in 1848. It marks the shift from one constitutional monarch, and the supporters of the Bourbon would be called legitimized, and supporters of this Louis Philippe were called the Orleanists. Okay, 1830s helna revolutions atlenga chu July revolutions ani chuanin hemi hi Second French revolutions ti pona soi thei tho. French Bourbon monarch Louis Philippe, Duke of Orleans khan rowarela chanchin bulampo kha ngai o tir lia ti chuanin mipui du thlanna angkhanin lalna kha thunei le ta ni chu thunei na ron chel le ta ni chuan he revolution si Belgium ate Poland ate adar na sa hle ani ti chuanin khati zong kha voina kan explained thei ania next unifications of Italy atangin kan chandon nia thank you all.